Well, good morning. We're back to the Loopy channel. Today, we're going to have the Honorable Judge Joe Pep Guzman out of Towson. And we're happy to have you and, for you to share your time with us. You know that.
Yes, welcome, Judge. We're so happy to have you here, and it's such an honor to have you here right in our presence. So
Oh,
we're excited to learn all about you today.
And obviously, he brought his beautiful young son with him, Cyrus, and he's going to join in and tell us a little bit about yourself, Cyrus.
So when I first started everything, like when I first started my channel, at first everything like was normal, but then after I increased my subs and followers on everything that I started to gain, I just kept posting, not wanting to give up, and eventually I did reach one of my goals of 500 subscribers, and I have over and I have almost 300,000 views, and I've just been like kept doing content for my channel and making sure that I can just keep achieving my goals like you guys can achieve your goals.
Love it.
Love it. I
nice, Cyrus.
mean,
Thank you. Thank you.
wow, you're pretty inspirational to everyone, probably.
I always inspire other people to make sure that they can achieve their goals and always support people who are on their downside.
Well, I guess your dad has you on the right path. Look at
Yes, following in his
that.
Yeah,
footsteps.
there you go. Well, thank you guys for the invitation. It's nice to be out here. Thank you for making time for us. I appreciate the invitation and ready to share, our life story, our journey,
Yes.
our goals and our dreams, and what we intend to do here in the future. So thank you again for inviting us to come out and join you guys on the podcast on the Lupe channel.
On
Yes.
the
Yeah, we
Lupe
really
channel.
appreciate you guys.
What's funny is like I had a notepad because I kind of took a little peek at the history of, how you started
Oh,
back all the way to, I believe, 1983, 81.
1991.
And then you got appointed as a judge out in Towson as of 1991.
correct.
I mean, I forgot it in the vehicle, but I mean, it's such an impressive list. I mean, you provide events for families, golf events, the West Valley Youth. I mean, it goes on and on. I
Yeah.
wish I could say
I was
everything.
surprised to find out too that you were a teacher before you started.
Well, it's been quite a journey, and it's one that started in Avondale, on the west side, and back in 1977, I graduated from Agua Fria High School, and then from there I went to GCC, and quite literally, sat down with some of my colleagues at GCC, and we started drawing up a list of goals and achievements that we wanted to meet and we wanted to attain. And it was really a self evaluation of where you see yourself in the next 5 years, where you see yourself in the next 20 years, things that, just matters of self realization and where your ambition is. And so one of the things that I listed on there was to run for the Avondale City Council. And
Okay.
I was successful doing that in 1983 as a 23-year-old. That's when I first ran, and I was the top vote getter that year, and even received more votes than the incumbent mayor in 1983. And I served in that capacity until 1991, when in May 5th, May 6th of 1991, I was appointed by the Board of Supervisors to fill a vacancy at the Agua Fria Justice Court. And that's been 35 years, and it's been
Yes.
wonderful. It's been
That is
wonderful. I
so.
love what,
For you to give your time to everyone, amazing.
Over a
well,
decade.
it's about what's important to you, Lupe and Rosita. It really is. It comes down to what's important to you. What's the most important thing to you in life, and where's your passion? Where's your purpose in life? Where do you find meaning in life? And once you're able to define that in general terms, then you're able to, through initiatives, through activities, through events, then you're able to define that a little bit more specifically on where you want to help your community, whether it's youth, whether it's families, whether it's neighborhoods, and you have to be present in the community to make a difference. You can't just say that you're about community, but show no action plan
Exactly.
and not do anything. But when you are of the people and for the people, well, then your community sees that, and you're doing it because that's where your heart is. That's where your passion is. That's where you define yourself as being a contributor to your community, and making life a little better for people. And you start with, um, you know, um, you start with what's important to you, whether it's education, whether it's community development, whether it's enrichment activities for children, whether it's financial assistance for kids that are promoted from the 8th grade to high school or high school to college, identifying needs in the community. One of the wonderful things that's happening out in the West Valley, and I have to applaud them, is a program in Cashin, in the Cashin neighborhood. Led by several community leaders. Cashin has heart, and their mission is to rise up that community and break generational cycles of poverty, of lack of education, of substance abuse, dependence on drugs, and build up the community so that there was some pride in living in that neighborhood, and they're doing some great things. And so, what I do in my time is equivalent to that. Is like, what can we do to go out in the community to build it up,
Yes.
to build it up and give these neighborhoods a sense of pride and home ownership and things like that. And during the Christmas season, we have our annual Christmas party where we invite over 150 families to come out for a day of fun and food and entertainment, and make their day a little more present, because we don't want these children to go home and feel like Christmas missed them. And so we'll do our small part in helping the community and providing some enrichment. But yeah, since 1991, I've been the Justice of the Peace for the West Side. And I was telling a friend of mine the other day, we just got back from the Arizona Judicial Conference, which is held every year. So it's a gathering of all judicial officers throughout the state of Arizona. I was telling one of the Superior Court judges that I met the other day that, my second year in law school, I discovered the Justice Courts of Maricopa County, and did a little bit of research into the general nature of the courts, and realized that it's an elected position. It's a 4-year elected position, and it's a court of general jurisdiction. So it handles a variety of case types, and it was right in my neighborhood. And so by the second year in law school, I decided, you know what, that's what I want to do. I want to be
Wow.
the local justice of the peace, because
Wow.
at that time I was currently on the Avondale City Council, and so I said it gives me the best of both worlds. It gives me an opportunity to get involved in partisan politics. It gives me an opportunity to go out and campaign to be part of the legal profession.
We always
And
love
so,
helping out with the communities and supporting everyone, especially my father's communities, since we want to help him out with winning the election, and I always just care about him.
I love it.
there we
Vote for
go.
Judge
There we
Pep.
go. There we go.
You have
So,
been the longest standing judge there.
Well-
I've seen one of the longest standing.
well, I currently in Maricopa County, as far as the justice courts, yes, but I think that I'm probably the longest. Um, I'm probably the most tenured elected official in the
Yes.
state of Arizona, because what I'm talking about is being in an elective office continuously with
Yes.
no lapse in service of office. So if you look at it that way, I've held an elected position since January 1 of 1984, and there's been no lapse since then.
That says a
Yeah,
lot
that's
about
what I
you.
was
So
reading.
it's
Yeah.
44, if my math is correct, that's 44 years of continuous uh, local representation as an elected official with no breaks. And so now there's probably a handful of people out there throughout the state of Arizona that have served in an elected capacity for 30, 40 plus years maybe, but maybe they sat out one election cycle, or two, but continuously with no lapse in service, I'm probably I probably lead the state
what
now.
that's what I
I don't know
thought.
if there's no, I don't know of anyone that keeps record of any of that. So we would have to do a
Google
deep
does.
dive into everything.
But the
that-
value you give to everyone,
You know.
I mean, that you bring, for all these years, I mean, that's,
It says
I
a
don't
lot.
have no words for
Yeah,
it.
it says a
Right.
lot. Your boots are on the ground. You're connected to your people because your people has what been keeping you there, and that says everything about
Oh, it's about faith, family, and community.
you. Yes.
It's about faith, it's about family, and it's about community. And so you take care of your family. That's self-explanatory. You keep God in in
Yes.
your life, and,
Absolutely.
Number one.
and that's self-explanatory. Everybody has their journey in faith, and they define it any way they want, and they're free to do that. We live in a country where you're able to worship any way you want, anywhere you
Have
want.
choices,
and,
yes.
And then it comes to community, and there's a scene in that movie Gladiator
Oh, I
with
love
Russell
that
Crowe.
movie.
Okay,
Yes.
one of my favorite movies. And you see these Roman leaders up in the stands, and they're watching the gladiators out on the field in the arena, and there's a dialogue between two of the leaders, and
Oh,
and one
God.
of the gentlemen looks at the other one and says, I thought you were of the people," and the other gentleman's response is, "Well, I'm for the people, but I'm not of the people." No, big difference.
Yeah.
Big difference.
It's
And
a big
I,
difference.
Oh my
I
God.
sat there and I listened to that, and it resonated with
God.
me. And I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. If you're for the people, why can't you be part of the people and of them? And so
Exactly.
that's one of the philosophical aspects that I've embraced a lot of times. I said, I'm not just for the people, but I'm of the people. So when I serve a community or a particular neighborhood, I'm helping myself.
You always want to love.
Because
We've noticed it too
know-
when we show up to your events and participate with you.
I'm helping myself because I'm helping my community. I'm helping my neighbors, and so we're one of the
Yes.
same.
You always
You
want to
know,
make
and-
sure faith, family, and community are always the most important things in your life, as those
Absolutely.
are definitely the things that you must care about the most. Family, faith, and importance. Especially community, since it's definitely one of the most important things that you want to care about in your life.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
see you out there. That's how we met. I mean,
Yeah.
being at one of your events,
Right,
the
and-
Christmas thing, and you say
Actually, the
it's
Christmas one was the first one.
Right.
Yes.
And
Yeah, I
we
remember that.
do that, and I was inspired by a lot of people. I've been inspired by a lot of different people, a lot of different ways throughout my journey, whether it's my educational journey, my political experience, or my education, or my community service. There was a gentleman. He passed away. Ben, rest in heaven. But Ben Miranda, he's from South Phoenix. Back in 1975, 76, he made an appearance in our Spanish class with Mr. Marquez at Agua Fria High School. And he was there to essentially, give the Chicano students, an idea of what to look forward to after high school, college specifically, and how they could get involved, in the community, in politics, seek a higher education, and not just stop at the high school level, but move on to a 4-year university. And so that was inspiring at that time. It was very inspiring, and that was one of the factors that played into my decision to go to attend Glendale Community College after I graduated from high school.
By the way,
And
speaking of inspiring, you were the one that inspired me, Dad.
there you go.
Oh
There
my
you go.
God.
There, and then from there, from
Yes.
GCC, then it was ASU, and then when I was at ASU, then Ben Miranda was a law student at the time. Francisco Gutierrez was a law student at the time, and a handful of other Chicano students that were attending law school at the time. I was an undergraduate at the time, and so we'd all gather around, the plaza there in front of the Hayden Library on the main campus at ASU, and every now and then I would walk over with with Francisco Gutierrez and Ben Miranda and some of the other students, Manuel Garibay, and we would, Ursinio Salais was another one. So I'm an undergraduate, they're all law students, so we'd walk over to Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law, and I'd sit in their study session, I'd sit in one of their classes. Now I'm an undergraduate, I'm not a law student. So I'm just sitting there listening and absorbing, the experience, and then
I can visualize it
yeah,
too.
I'm just sitting there taking notes and just learning by just watching and listening. And I graduated with my Bachelor of Science degree in 1981, and then I moved on to the Maricopa County Juvenile Court, where I was there for about 4 years, and then I applied to law school, and I was admitted in 1985 to ASU Law School and graduated in 1988. And then actually I was going to run for my current position in 1990. So that was my plan. Like I said, in
What
my
were you,
second,
like 30?
I graduated when I was 28, I believe, when I started law school.
Wow.
Yeah, because I was appointed at 32. So when I was 32 years old, I was
That's an
appointed.
amazing
Wow.
accomplishment at 32 years
And,
old.
and like I mentioned, at my second year in law school, I had discovered the justice court. So by the time I graduated, I'm thinking, okay, in '88, the next election cycle was 1990. So I thought, you know what? I got 24 months to prepare. I'll run for justice of the peace in 1990, and there it is. The two worlds are now going to collide. Elected politics and being in the legal profession. I sat down with a group of people that I really trusted and admired. Ken Ryan was with the Valley Chamber of Commerce. Don Cloud was the principal at Agua Fria High School. Dr. Amabisca was the superintendent at Avondale Elementary School, and some of the local business people as well. And I said, and I gathered them. I put together a meeting because I was going. So the only item on the agenda was, do you think I should run in 1990? Do you think I'm ready? Do you think I'm prepared? Do you think I'm electable?
I believe you were
You would
ready.
always
You
be
know,
ready for everything.
And
You've been ready since you were born.
so I had a group of 10, 12 people whose opinion I respected and admired, and collectively they said, you're probably not ready.
Oh, okay.
And I think I'm, yeah, I was 32. Collectively they said, I'm not ready. And so I went home and pondered their thoughts, and I'm thinking, well, you did invite them to meet with you for a reason, because you wanted their advice. Okay, you wanted their counsel. You can't do a 360 and ignore what they had to say and decide to run on your own. Their advice is valuable. It has a lot of value.
By listening, you get better. Yes.
And so I decided not to run in 1990. I decided not to run. Said, okay, it's not my turn. It's
Yeah,
not
and
my
one of the
time.
best ways that you can always accomplish your dreams is by providing from someone else.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm thinking, timing and opportunity, it's not they're not meeting at the same intersection right now for me. Okay, but that's okay, because I know God has a plan for me.
Yes.
So 1990, decided not to run, and then we flipped the calendar to 1991, and the current judge that was at that office at the time resigned in January of 1991. And so I thought, well, you know what?
There's the message right
This
there.
is a no-brainer, man. It's being set up for me. So I was one of 95 applicants because the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors put together a judicial advisory committee, and they were going to sift through all the applications and interview the final five finalists. And so they made several cuts. They went to 2-3 different cuts before they got to the 5 finalists. And a friend of mine says, well, are you going to be upset? Are you going to be upset if you don't make it to the final 5? And I said, no. You're not going to be upset? I go, no, I'll be upset if I don't get the appointment. That's what's going to upset me.
Yeah.
I said, because
Your
Don't ever
dream
get
is
upset about
bigger.
stupid things.
I'm praying it into reality, that I get the
And
appointment.
God was doing his work
And
already.
so
should never get upset about stupid things.
Yeah. And so I
love
walk.
this
So
kid.
they call us. They call all of us. All 5 of us are sitting in the lobby at the County Board of Supervisors, right? And they're going to take us into this conference room one by one and interview us. And then they're going to forward the recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. And at that time, Carol Carpenter and Congressman Ed Pastor were serving the Southwest Valley. That was part of the Justice Court, so it was going to be their call as to who the appointment was going to go to. And so I walk into the interview room, and it's filled with just about everybody that I already had contacted about supporting my application. Now that was prior to the formation of the advisory group. So Dr. Amabiska was the chairman, and I was at her home, 30 days before that interview date, recruiting her as a supporter and say, hey, how could, let's talk about how you can support me to influence the outcome of this decision. And she was ready to help me out. But then we fast forward, it turns out she becomes the chairman of this group. And so I'm sitting out in the lobby waiting for the interview, and I'm thinking, okay, so how do you approach this, Pep? How do you approach it? Who's on the panel? Rachel Gam, Ken Ryan, you got Dr. Amabiska, you got Don Cloud, all these people that you've worked with and you've known for all these years.
The path was set, right?
Yeah, I said, how do you approach it? I said, well, you know what? Just approach it in a business manner. This is a business meeting. It's an interview for a job, and you treat it that way. It's not a casual, let's have coffee and donuts, type of atmosphere. So I embraced myself with that approach, not knowing not knowing what to expect on the other side of the door when I entered the interview room. But anyhow, I walk into the interview room, and Dr. Amabiska stands up, and she's, "Ay, Pepito!" Big hug. And I thought, oh my, what an icebreaker. I said, okay. So
Don't ever break the ice.
yeah. So at that point I said, okay, so relaxed atmosphere now. She's setting the tone. She set the tone, and one of the first questions was, tell us what you know about the justice courts in Maricopa County and the state of Arizona. And I said, bingo. I had spent hours at the law library researching the history of the justice courts and how they operate in their formation in 1912 when Arizona became the 48th state. And so I gave them a litany of the history of the courts, and they all looked at me just wide open thinking, oh my goodness.
I don't even know all that information.
You said wide open?
Yeah. And then a couple of them came up to me and said, you know what, after your interview it was done. Decision was firmly cemented that you would receive the appointment. And so I got a funny story to share with you. So this was before beepers. This was before cell phone. Okay, this is 1991. Okay, so it's before the explosion of
you run home to answer the phone.
Of cell phones. We still had a rotary phone at home. Then they said, hey, look, Pep, we're gonna make the announcement Tuesday morning. Prior to the Board of Supervisors meeting, make sure you're by your phone. You may get a phone call if you're selected, and we're going to need you down here, but it'll be last minute, I said, okay. So I got home the night before, and it was routine. My practice was to turn off the phone because I didn't appreciate anyone calling at midnight, 1 a.m, waking up my parents, things like that. So I get home, and I do what I did every night. Went in there, turned off the phone, and then I went to bed. And so the next morning I get up and I'm thinking, I look at my clock and I'm thinking, oh, it's already 8 o'clock. I said, the phone hasn't rang. And I'm thinking, oh, wait a minute, you shut the ringer off. So I run to the kitchen and I turn the ringer on. And then within 30 seconds, the phone rings. And
Ring,
they
ring,
said,
ring,
"Hey,
ring,
we've been
ring,
trying to
ring."
get a hold of you.
Yeah,
We've been
all
trying
day.
to get a hold of you." And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry." I explained what happened.
Yeah.
Good
Can you
kid.
be here by 9? I think it was about 8:15.
Oh my
Ring, ring,
God.
ring,
Can you
ring,
be here
ring,
by 9?
ring,
You're
ring.
going to get the appointment. And I'll be right there. I hang up and I drive downtown. And that's the same day
You're
that
just-
Ed Pastor is announcing his resignation from the Board of Supervisors to run for Congress. You know, so it was a big morning. I made it on time, and I got the appointment, and told the panel that it was it was an honor to
Yes.
get the appointment, and that I would always do my best to represent them as well as I could, because they're the ones that are making the appointment. They're the ones that are showing faith and confidence in my potential and my ability to do the job, and make the community proud. And so I had Richard Ortiz, former Justice of the Peace from Yavapai County, no, Coconino County, because he
Pie.
was from Flagstaff, Coconino County. He was my mentor. So May 20th, 1991 was my first day on the job, and they said, okay, we're Dick Ortiz is going to be your mentor for the next 2 weeks. And I had met Richard Ortiz, but I met him that Monday morning, my first day on the job, on the 20th of May, 1991, and introduced ourselves. I said, okay, well, you know, Judge Ortiz, you're going to be with me the next 2 weeks. He goes, well, that's the plan. I said, okay. So Monday, I shadowed him. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Friday of the first week comes around, and he says, and I tell him, I said, okay, well, I'll see you Monday. He goes, no. I'm not going to be here Monday. I said, well, you've got to be here. You're with me for 2 weeks.
You said job, you mean something like this?
Yep, your job. He goes, you're with me for the next 2 weeks. He goes, no. He goes, I'm done. He goes, what do you mean you're done? He goes, you're on your own. You're going to do well. You don't need me.
Oh my god.
And
You were ready.
and so he says, you're ready. You're ready. And he says, you're good. And I said, okay, well,
Wow.
hopefully I'll be good for the next 35 years. And I think I have.
That's where it all began.
You know,
I love
that's
it.
where it all began. And I think that, you know, for our young kids, it all starts with believing in yourself and building confidence in whatever you're doing, and, you know, loving yourself. You got to love yourself
Yes.
before you can move forward in anything, because if you don't love yourself, then you're not going to be able to build the capacity to love others. And if you don't love yourself, then you're not going to be in the correct emotional state or the correct mental state of mind to do something positive and move forward, you know, and build on your life, and do some positive things, and find some meaning in life, and do things that have some real purpose in life. And so that's where it all started. And I tell you what, you know, I was a fifth grader, true story. I was fifth grader at Laddie Court School in Avondale. And one of my buddies, Edmund Carizosa, he and I used to pal around. We were neighbors. And he introduced me to Little League Baseball, you know, so that's how I first got involved in sports. And we'd hang around all the time, and before school, after school, weekends, because he lived just down the street from me, and he was an athlete. And so we'd sit in the library, and we'd play little board games. We'd play board games, or we'd play this little, he had a pair of dice, you know, and we would play this little baseball game, you know. We'd keep score. He'd bring out a score sheet. He's, okay, well, if you get a 7, if you roll a 7, that's a home run. If you roll a 4, then that's an out. So we would just play, you know. And so I'm learning from him. I'm learning from Edmund. And we'd get these little, he'd get a little sheet of paper, and he'd wrap it up into a triangle shape, and we'd play little football. So we'd have the little, we'd do the little field goal like this.
I remember you doing that.
And so
yes.
we'd you know, push the little triangle shaped piece of paper to the edge of the
football.
table. You push it to the edge of the table.
Pushing is my job.
You're
It's the
getting
football.
you're scoring a touchdown. So that's how we just flick that little piece of paper, and if it went over the edge any extent over the edge, then that was a touchdown. So then you'd hold up your hands and you'd kick it.
We grew up at the
Fun.
same time, yes.
You know, yeah, and so, but the reason I share that story is because he always spoke about being a pro.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, I'm a pro, I'm a professional. And so
Bet you that was
that's
never
where-
actually real.
that's where the seed was planted for me about being a professional. And to me, being a professional meant becoming somebody
Yes.
and being someone. That was one of the early seeds that was planted in terms of, you know, how do you see yourself in the future? You know, how do you see yourself? What do you see yourself doing? And as I grew up,
At
you know,
that young.
that young, from the
That
fifth
young,
grade, you know,
you're
That's why I
already-
asked how old you were, because
yeah,
it's just
and that's what I share with kids. I say, find some meaning in life, find some purpose, you find your passion, and build on it. You know, and you're not going to be everything that you'll ever become in the next month, in the next year, the next 5 years, next 10 years. You know, I said, but you know, have a general idea of where you want to be in life. And now incrementally, step by step, you will eventually get there. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, you realize that you've achieved your
Oh
dream,
my
you've
God.
achieved your status, and you reached it. And you'll see, you'll look at yourself in the mirror and say, in wonderment, thinking, "Wow, I'm here. How did I get here? How did it happen?" Well, it happened because you took baby steps along the way, and you weren't, you know, grasping a rope and trying to climb over a wall. You were taking the staircase and taking one step at a time to reach the top.
knowing your steps.
You know,
Yes.
and that's where you achieve your
And
success.
you kept your eye on the prize.
And
like
so
you kept your eyes on
that's where it was for me, and it always has been, because it's about, again, faith, family, and community, and it's not about me, because you know what, anything that I do in the community, we all win.
We
You
all
know?
love
Yes.
we all love to
all
support
win.
communities.
You know, we all win. And so my victory as an elected official is a victory for my community, uh, because I'm for them and I'm of them.
Supporting
You know, we were-
communities are so fun, and it's always amazing just to support them and show how much you care about that community.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And you know the thing about it.
Tell me.
Also, when we show up to your events, you know my favorite thing to do is go straight over to where you're at and watch your enthusiasm of everything you're doing, sorting out the raffles stuff that you have there for the golfers, or
We always
Or
love
even
supporting people
for-
in need.
yes, or even meeting the people. Just that enthusiasm that you have. I just sit there and watch you for a little while before I come and talk to you.
And you
I'm
can
just
see
saying,
he's,
it's just it just picks me
he's
up.
of the people. Yeah, you can see you're like
Yeah,
one of
I
us.
mean,
You make
because
us
the
feel
way
like
everybody
connected.
just comes to you.
Yeah.
I mean,
You're so easy to talk to or relatable. Like honestly, I've never had a full blown conversation with a judge. To be honest.
You know? And you know, it's about sharing.
I bet you
It's
he's
about
also the
sharing your
first judge on this
success.
channel.
It's
is.
about sharing
He
your
is.
success, sharing your story with people. You know, I tell people, hey, look, I'm a phone call away. We get new judges on the bench, you know, that maybe don't have a legal background, maybe don't have a legal education, maybe they don't have a law degree or license to practice law. And I meet them and I said, you know what? I said, I'm a phone call away. I'm an email away. We want you to succeed, because if you succeed, you're one of 26 JPs in Maricopa County. If you succeed,
We always love supporting people who need to achieve their goals, and also supporting educations and other types of communities, especially
you
this
go.
community.
You're really
Absolutely.
teaching. He's
that's
like,
why we're
he's so-
supporting
you
Judge
could tell he's-
Joe Pep Guzman. His
Yeah.
primary is coming up, and he's going to be reelected this year again.
absolutely,
That's
God
it.
willing.
We're
And you know,
definitely
we-
going to get him reelected, unlike the other guy.
And I tell people, I say, I tell these new judges, if you do well and you succeed, then we all succeed.
We
you
all
know, and that's
succeed.
and that's
Everybody
where,
succeeds in life.
you know, and that's
With a good
that's really
heart.
where the mantra is, you know, because I don't chase a trophy.
we all
you know,
succeed together. You know.
You know, absolutely, and
We
yeah,
don't
you know,
chase things just so that way we can try to force succeedness. We need to earn that succeedness just so that way we can earn it ourselves.
Exactly, and you know, there's a lot of good people that have come out of the West Valley communities, whether it's Santa Maria, whether it's Ligas, Cashin, Tolleson, Avondale.
Sun
You know,
Canyon.
we have leaders, we have elected officials, we have business people, we have educators, we have politicians, we have professional athletes, you know, that have come out of our neighborhoods. And I had a conversation with Sherry Weiss. She's on the Avondale City Council now. During her first campaign for office, we were at an event at Donny Hale Park in Cashin, and she wasn't familiar with the Cashin neighborhood, you know, that borders 107th and 112th Buckeye and Durango in the West Valley. And I know she wasn't very familiar with that neighborhood, but my concern was that, you know, that neighborhood would be ignored. and I had a
A lot of
conversation
them
with
are.
her, and I said, you know what, Sherry, I said, this neighborhood can't be ignored. I said, it needs investment, it needs, infrastructure, it needs programs and activities for the kids, the families, the seniors. I said, let me tell you about this community. I said, right down the street, you have former educators. Right down the street, you have gentlemen that are working for the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. Right down the street, you have people that have served on local school boards. Right down the street, you have business people that are multimillionaires that have come out of this neighborhood.
We
I
all
said, so what you see right here,
we all really love support.
don't let what you see here, the dilapidated housing, the inoperable vehicle, the tall weeds, don't let that, blind you to what's behind all of that, because there are a lot of good people that have done a lot of good work in this community, and they need your attention.
We all
you know?
really love supporting
And
people who are local or in need, and we also just really love helping out those who have been struggling with life. And we just want to appreciate everything that we have done, and we always love everyone who we support, especially for those like police officers, educators, and every kind of community that we have helped out over the years.
exactly, that's good. That's good, Sarah.
And
That's
how
good.
old are you?
13.
And you've been doing it all these years also. I mean, I watched you grow up.
You've been his
Yeah.
sidekick, huh?
Yep, I've always been inspired by him.
Oh,
Aw.
look at you! Look at you!
I'm inspired by Judge
Yes,
Joe.
You know,
we
we
all
were.
are. You inspire a lot of people, Judge.
Well,
Joe,
thank
okay?
you, thank you,
Yeah.
and
Even the
it's
youngest.
about hope.
You
you
do
know,
give hope to
there's-
everybody. You inspire people with hope. You do.
If you give up on hope, then you just give up on yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
because
if you also give up on hope, you're also giving up on faith.
that's exactly
I love
exactly.
it. I see all the hope in the kids
Yeah,
that come
they-
to the Christmas party,
Oh,
the
you know
Christmas
what?
thing that you do.
You
every
always want to
single
have
year.
hope for
Yeah.
everything
Those
in
smiles.
life, especially like you want to have hope on your family, communities, and you especially want to have hope on faith. If you don't, if you give up hope, you're also giving up faith, basically.
So I have a story for you.
Tell me.
So a couple years ago, I went to the Glendale court, had to get something corrected from my past. And I ran into a judge there that I had to present my story to, Judge Delgado. Yeah, now he's in Avondale, I believe. And actually, I didn't realize I went to school with him, which is funny. You know, he has the same last name as me. So I told him the story that I had to present to him in order to get the response I needed from Judge Delgado. And I got exactly what I wanted. He gave me everything I wanted. But he was questioning himself because he asked the prosecuting attorney, you know, like if he knew any of the history of what I was talking to him about, the history
Wow.
that I had with my brother and how he put me in a bad place.
It was a
and
wild story.
It was a wild story.
That
It's
he
a
had
big
to
story.
buy.
I can't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
have to
can't say.
wild and amazing.
So I ran into Judge Delgado at your Christmas event.
Oh,
and
okay.
which was
Okay, okay.
pretty hilarious. And I was able to tell him that, hey, we went to school together, you know, and he remembered. So basically, the end of the story of what I told him was, you made the right decision. You believed a big story that you couldn't possibly have known if you heard it any other time. But what he said was, coming from the ghetto and realizing you have family members that can put you in desperate situations, you know, and ruin you for quite some years, you know, you have to sometimes believe those people that come out of those neighborhoods you're talking about. That's why that story came to me. So I
Yeah.
told him he made the right decision, which was, you know, he was happy about it to
Yeah.
actually know, you know, and actually run into me at your event. And it was inspiring me because of what you have to go through to, you know, make these decisions.
Yeah.
And you know what, that resonates with me, porque you know, our courts, and I'm talking about Arizona courts, they're not designed to address the root issue that led up to somebody being charged with a criminal offense, or they're facing eviction, or their wages are being garnished, or they're going to jail for some reason. Um, our system is punitive based. Okay, it's not based on a therapeutic approach to address the root problem. You can process 1,000 DUI cases, but you're not and you can send the person to DUI screening and treatment. You can, you can sentence them to jail, but uh, it was that one time that they were charged with the DUI, but you know, you don't address the 50 other times that person was driving under the influence of alcohol or drugs and wasn't detected. Or you don't address the causes of somebody being a domestic violence offender. You punish the convicted person for what and impose a fine or jail time or classes, but you don't come back to the root issue. And a lot of times when you're sitting there and you're making, judgments, then you have to, put it upon yourself to think about this person's story, the person before you. We don't know their story, but try to understand their story. Because, I tell a lot of people, I said, look, you've been convicted of a DUI. You have these classes to complete. If you don't complete them, you're going to go to jail for 9 days or 21 days, whatever the case may be. I don't want you to go to jail. Okay, you serve nobody any purpose by, you don't do anyone any good by going to jail. You may lose your job, you may lose your family, your spouse may divorce you, you may lose your home, so on and so forth. But so you stay out of jail because I don't want you to go to jail, but I need you to do these classes. I need you to comply with this court order so that you avoid all of that, and I think judges across the state have to understand that, hey, you know what, these individuals that come before the court, they need an opportunity to, they don't need a handout.
No
Okay,
handout.
they don't need a
at all.
handout. They need a hand up. Okay, they need a hand up. So and what I mean by that is, I have gentlemen, people, ladies and gentlemen, I have them come in and say, okay, I got expired registration, I have no insurance, and I have a suspended license. Okay, I got the triple whammy.
If there's any kids watching
police
this,
officer
if there's
approaches
any
you,
kids watching this, please
you know?
don't take any advice from this.
You get pulled over by the police, and the police officer, first words out of their mouth is, let me see your registration, insurance, and driver's license. And if you don't have any of the above, you're going to get a ticket. You're going to be cited for no insurance, no registration, and no driver's license. I have those people come by the court every week. And every now and then I'll have an individual who says, Judge, I reinstated my license. Here it is. I got my insurance. Here it is. I got my registration. Here it is. Everything is legitimate now. And I have to sit back and reflect on what this person had to go through to get all that done.
Aw.
And I'm thinking, do I impose a fine or do I not?
Wow.
Everyone watching this, please.
I need to encourage this person a little bit, and you know what? I'm going to encourage them in life, the little bit that I can, by not imposing a fine. So they've already done enough to get their life on track, as far as all those issues are concerned. They don't need to be punished anymore. So I'm going to punish their good effort by imposing a fine.
Everyone watching this, please don't do anything that's just gonna get you in trouble. You really don't want to do that, guys.
Just don't end up in front of your dad.
Yeah.
No, but he's so fair. What have you say? You also go by your heart. Like, I think that is amazing.
That's why we have
because
you here.
After what I see, I mean, again, I don't have the experience as a judge, but I see so many people that have been in the same position for so long that after a while you could be like, oh, they've been here forever, because they almost turn into like a zombie, that they're just there doing the task or whatever. They're not connected anymore.
Right.
And you're still like, if you were there in day one, being a judge, treating the people from like, just as you
That's
did
why
the first case, and I love it.
That's what I was telling you, when I sit there and watch you, just for a little bit before I go and talk with you, is just watching who you are.
He's all heart.
I mean, how many people can I do that with?
Yeah.
Not a lot, but I do it with you.
Probably very
Thank
little.
You spread
you.
so much joy,
right.
just your presence. Your presence says everything. I mean,
Thank you.
Yes.
And it's a way of living, and if you have God in your life, and then you learn the lessons of love, you learn the lessons of compassion, you learn the lessons of of generosity. You learn the lessons of hope and faith and family, and so you live that way because it becomes a way of life. It becomes a lifestyle. It's not something that I'm going to, you know, refer to in a moment of crisis or in a moment of despair or in a moment of confusion. No, I'm not going to do that because I'm going to live my life on a daily basis.
It's who you are.
Though reflecting those principles the best way I can, you know. And so when you approach, when you have that emotional and mental approach to life, then you're able to ignore a lot of the things that don't matter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and if it's something on your mind right now, and you think it's important, well, then you know what? You just need to let it marinate in your brain for a little while, and not respond spontaneously, because by tomorrow, the following day, you'll have forgotten about this moment that you're in, and you'll realize it did not matter.
Yes.
Never gonna happen again.
You know?
So it was just an emotional moment, probably.
And you know, you train yourself emotionally and mentally for that, and there are a lot of you know what, people are good, you know, people are good, people are honest, people are trustworthy, and you have to approach life that way. And so when somebody walks into the courtroom, that's what I see.
Oh.
And I tell them, I said, ladies and gentlemen, I believe everyone is honest. I believe that you're telling me the truth. I said, so if you're going to share something with me, make sure that it's the truth and the complete truth.
Yes.
Because if you don't, if you give me something less than the truth, then you're asking me to make a judicial decision on something that's less than the truth. Now, do you want that?
No.
Do you want me to make a decision on something that's based on less than the whole truth? No, of course not. So you tell me what happened. You tell me, you share your story so that I can make a good, sound decision. I believe that you're telling me the truth. And I say this all the time. I say, I believe you're telling me the truth. I said, but you come to me in terms of conclusions. You're sharing conclusions with me. What I want you to do is take me through your own personal journey on how you reach that conclusion.
That's what I did when the story I told you.
If you don't share the journey with me, then I may not be able to share the conclusion.
Right.
And I understand what your conclusion is, but if I don't have the filler, if I don't have the details, if I don't have the series of events, the pattern of conduct that you experienced that got you to this conclusion, then I can't share that conclusion with you. You know, and we're at our court, there's 26 JP courts in Maricopa County, and we rank probably 14th in volume. So we do a little bit of everything, and most people, you know, they what they know about, you know, the justice courts. Oh, it's traffic tickets and weddings. That's all that's all these guys do. You know, the local justice of the peace. You want to get married, go to the justice of the peace. You know, you get a speeding ticket, that's where you're gonna go. We're a lot more than that. Civil lawsuits where the
A lot of lawsuits, to be exact.
the amount of dispute is the amount in controversy is less than 10,000. Small claims up to 5,000. We do evictions. We do all traffic. We do criminal traffic. We do all misdemeanors, bench trials, jury trials. We do orders of protection. We do injunctions against harassment. On a typical Wednesday, Friday, our court can handle, you know, from anywhere from 50 to 100 evictions. My area is, you know, most of the West Valley, you know, West Phoenix, the Santa Maria neighborhood there at 67th Avenue and Lower Buckeye, the West Phoenix area near 83rd, 91st and Lower Buckeye, Avondale, Cashin, Tolleson, Ligas at Almirage and Lower Buckeye, you know, all those areas. A lot of it is south of the 10. Between 67th Avenue and Dicer Road. So that's where our case files or our case types are generated from that area, you know. And
And one of the best areas there is Tolleson, since they always support us.
Yeah, and you're right. You're right.
You know, it's good to talk about all this, you know, because people need to know, you know, like, because they always wonder, like, are all judges fair? How do they make their decisions? So, like, I'll tell my side. Like when I've been there before, I always came in with the face I was born with,
Wow.
which wasn't a good face to be bringing in front of someone. You know, I mean, it wasn't a good face, so I had to change the way I presented myself. And like you said, you have to come with the history of it, not the way you look and the fear or whatever you're presenting to yourself. So later on, you know, if I had a situation where I did come before a judge, then I removed the face I was born with, which wasn't a good viewing for the judge. Automatically you get, you know, a point whatever way you look. But
Yeah,
if
and
you
it's-
come in there participating and doing what needs to be done, then that's where the fairness comes in. You know, because then they have something to go by instead of nothing. You know, instead of just expecting, because most people expect these days, and it shouldn't be that way. You know, I mean, the system's designed for a reason, and I'm really happy we brought you in so that way you can tell us. You know, I mean,
No,
it's a-
absolutely. And you know, I tell people, you set the tone. You set the tone, Pete. You walk into that courtroom, you walk into a boardroom, you walk into a meeting, you walk into the family room at home, whatever setting it is. You know, you
Yes.
set the tone. If you have the power to set the tone, you need to realize that first of all.
Yes.
Okay, there's a lot of people that don't realize the power that they bring, the power of their personality, the power of their influence that they bring into a room or any other space, and you know, if they don't realize it, well, then they can't appreciate it. Okay, because you may
Absolutely.
walk into a room and you set the tone, and it may be 180 degrees different than what was existing before your presence, you know, and so it goes into, you know, being able to realize, you know, with the power that you have, and so, you know, so when I walk into the courtroom, when you know, it's situational awareness, you know, situational awareness, relationship awareness, all these things. So when I walk into the courtroom, I know that, you know, I need to be at peace with myself, first of all. I know that the power that I bring, the power that the position brings to set the tone, I want everyone relaxed. I want them to be relaxed. I don't want them to be nervous. I don't want them to be scared. I need to explain the process. This is what we're doing, you know, so that you understand what the process looks like, and so that you know what the rules are, the rules that we're playing by, and so that you can appreciate what happens here, and so you can be a more educated participant in what's happening in your life at that moment. You come into court and you just, let's say, for example, you're charged with a DUI. So I need to explain to you, this is a class 1 misdemeanor in the state of Arizona, and there's mandatory jail if you're convicted. And this is to a general audience as we're coming into the courtroom. I said, you need to understand that.
Yes, absolutely.
If you're convicted of a DUI in the state of Arizona, you will go to jail.
Yes.
That's not Judge Guzman saying you're going to jail. That's not,
That's the rules.
That's not Joe Pep Guzman personally
law you
telling
meant to
you
say?
that you're going to jail. That is the law. That is what the law says.
Yeah, you
Okay,
must
so-
obey the law. You need
Yeah,
to
so
make
you need
sure
to
that
be
you
a-
do whatever the law says.
Exactly, and you need to be aware of that. Now, this is the process. You come into court, and so I think that, you know, it shows a little bit of care, you know, from the bench, that you care enough to educate your audience, that you care enough to share information. So now they understand. Now they're able to manage the space that they're in, and they're able to manage the case that they're faced with, and now hopefully they leave the court, whether the ruling is in their favor or not in their favor. At least they can walk out of the court knowing that, one, I understood the process, I had an opportunity to participate, and the ruling that was made in my favor or against me was because of this.
Yeah, like
You know?
when we were chatting the other day, and like you said, you didn't request them to be in front of you. They chose to be in front of you, you know, so
Yeah,
they-
people can always choose what they want to do or not.
If I ever have to be in front of a judge, I hope it's in front of you. 'cause I like
Not
what
me.
you guys-
Yeah. No, and you know what you said a little.
Well, I know what it's like living with the judge
We're
every single
friends.
day.
And you know what you said, Rosita? What you said a few moments ago is very true. That you can be in a certain position for so long. You know, whatever discipline it may be, whatever profession it may be, you could be in sales, you could be a realtor, you could be a broker, you could be an attorney, a judge, a doctor, whatever position you hold in life. You could be at that position for so long that now that you take a rote approach to what you do.
Yes.
You know, it's just standard routine. I'm repeating myself every day, so on and so forth. I don't care about my customer. I don't care about my client. I don't care about the person standing in front of me. I'm just going through the process. And now I'm a little jaded on what I do because, you know, I've seen too many people come before me that have lied, that have cheated, that have misrepresented themselves, that have not told me the
people always
truth.
try.
And now, you know, I'm upset with the whole world.
Yeah, a lot
Well-
of people, they try to lie just so that they can get their way out of court.
And that's probably true. And
No,
you
it's
know, but
100%
you
true.
You have to
Explain
fight.
that way better than me. Yes.
You have to fight that resistance because that doesn't apply to everybody.
Speaking
okay?
of resistance, you should never
know,
resist arrest.
It doesn't apply to everybody, and you just have to remind yourself of that because, you know, it's just like interracial relationships and relationships among races, whether you're dealing with
Don't ever
you know,
be racist.
Caucasian people, whether you're dealing with the black community, the Chicano community, the Native community, whatever the case may be.
The
And
American community.
this is always this is always a good analogy for me in life because sometimes I may have an interaction with somebody that is not of my race, and so I start going down this wrong direction of thinking that everybody of that color is the same way.
Yeah, it's not
know.
true. Yes.
And so I need to remind myself that, you know what? No,
Yeah, so that way people don't think you're racist.
This particular individual behaves this way, acts this way, talks this way, lives life this way, but he or she is not a reflection of an entire population.
No.
You know, and so you can't color that whole population based on, you know, the brush strokes that this person presented to you.
Just
And
like how
so-
you can't try to make your way out of court and try to escape the law.
Exactly. And so how that applies to court is the same way. It's like, you know, if one person came in and was argumentative, was confrontational, you know, was the type A personality, wanted things to
Lack
go
of
their way.
education,
you know,
something.
and,
Yes.
Education, you must always count as importantness.
Yeah, and you can't assume or presume that everybody else that follows is going to behave the same way. And the same thing applies to you as the judge.
Yeah, some people are always the complete opposite.
Exactly. You know, I can have someone come into court who's been non-compliant multiple times.
Or someone
know.
who has resisted arrest a lot.
That happens too. Where someone has a case that's been on file for 10 years, let's say, for example, and that's not uncommon. And they've been non-compliant for the last
Bet you 10 years
years
is very common.
You know, and so we sit there and you know, you admonish that person. You know, you give them a judicial scolding.
Yeah.
And say, this is what I expect you to do. You need to do it. You know, it's been 10 years, you know, and so we want to close out this file. This is what you need to do. And I don't need to, there's no reason why I should have to sit here and admonish you this way. You know, we're all grown up.
Yes.
We're all adults. You know, let's be responsible and
Yeah,
get this done.
Yeah, and you must act like an adult, not act like a little toddler.
Act and behave like one. And so get it done.
Yeah,
And
if you're grown up, act like a grown up. Don't act like a little toddler.
You know, yeah, the voice might rise a little bit in tone. You know, your demeanor may change a little bit. You know, to drive the point home. Okay.
Although it could get so bad as to where it literally gets into like a freaking war zone.
Have you been to some of the?
He's been to my court, yeah.
Oh yeah.
And so once I'm done with that individual,
we play a lot in there.
so once I'm done with that individual, then I have to take a step back and reflect
Yes.
for 5, 10, 30 seconds and say, okay, now you set the tone. Now everyone that's sitting in that audience just heard you admonish this person
You really don't want to set
And
the tone
give
in
them-
court, as that can probably get you
Yeah.
into more trouble.
and give them a judicial scolding. The next person who was called to come before the judge is probably thinking, oh boy, I'm going to get it. And you don't want them to think that.
Yeah,
Because
you don't.
Yeah, yeah. If
everyone-
you keep arguing
yeah,
with the
let's
judge, you're
start-
definitely gonna be getting it.
So you hit the reset button and say, okay, next on the docket is so-and-so. Okay, just take a deep breath. Let's exhale. Let's relax. Okay, we're starting new.
We
with
don't
you.
know that history yet.
You know, exactly.
Yes.
And so that's where you know, having the right judicial temperament, you know, the right demeanor comes into play because you know, people appreciate that, you know, and there's a lot of people that are out there struggling in life, and they have to deal with the court, whether they're losing their license, whether they're going to jail, whether they're being evicted, whether their wages are being garnished.
You can be there for
and-
almost any reason.
you know, and I feel I empathize with people that are being evicted because, you know, they're struggling financially. They're struggling financially, and they're falling back on their rent. They're being evicted for non-payment of rent, and they have a litany of reasons why they got into that situation: unemployment.
Yeah, so
You
when
know.
you're in court, you should definitely just follow everything that the judge wants to say. Don't do anything
think
bad,
so?
otherwise you're literally just gonna get charged with even more things.
Well, let's keep it simple. Then you can be in and out real fast.
Yeah, you know, and so you know, a lot of times as a judge you can't do anything really to help that individual that's in dire financial straits. They're being evicted. The proof is there. You know, the landlord's entitled to possession of the premises, but you listen. You listen. And say, you know what, it's unfortunately that you had an illness in your family, or you had a death in your family, or there's a loss of employment. Maybe you got laid off. You're not working as many hours. That's really unfortunate. But just do the best that you can to.
And that's got nothing to do with anything we're here for.
Yeah, and have faith in what you're doing. Good luck, and try to work something out with your landlord, because there's a lot of people that are in that situation. You know, the opposite of that would be, you know, to admonish somebody just because they didn't pay the rent. Well, why are you not paying your rent? You know, it's due on the first of the month. They don't need a mental scolding. They don't need a mental beat down. You know, they don't need an emotional,
it's
you know,
true.
They've already been through that. They don't need another layer, and you're not in a position to do that. You know, you should be a voice of encouragement and let them know that, hey, look, you know, there's hope, and you need to just keep trying. And I tell a lot, you know what, young men, they come into court, and I know what they're doing. I know what they're doing to survive out on the streets, because they're not working full time. They don't own their own home, but they're able to live life the way they want.
Extravagantly.
They may have a habit, and they're able to support that habit, whatever that habit may be. You know, whatever recreational activities they want to engage in, you know, throughout their lives, they're able to manage doing it financially. Okay.
Landlords
They'll
are
find
even
a
more
way.
annoying than
find
Alfred
a way to do
taking
it.
so long for me to make a smoothie.
Okay, they'll find a way to get it done. And so what I tell these young men and ladies, I said, you know what? I said, you're very creative. You're smart. You've got initiative. You're creative. You're smart. You've got initiative. You need something today. Whatever it is that you need in your life, you know what it is. I don't need to know what it is. You don't need to tell me. I'm not asking. But I know that there's a need in your life that you're going to, today, that exists, and you're going to meet that need. You're going to fulfill that need. You're going to find a way to get it done. Okay? So what I say to you is, take that same creative energy, take that same drive, that same initiative, and find the money to pay your fine.
I love it.
Okay?
Simple as that.
That's a good message.
I mean, do it. You can do it.
You can do it.
You know,
Yeah, you want to
because
make
you're-
sure that
you're-
you can always
you're-
accomplish everything.
You're finding a way to accomplish the things you want to accomplish today, without a job, without stable housing. Okay, so let's just transfer those skills over here.
That's like a simple way to put it to them. Does it usually click in their brain? Like, that's so true.
Well, then they realize you know a little bit about their story.
Yeah.
You know,
Although they
their
probably
story,
don't
where they
really
came
realize
from.
that much.
Because it's just like you folks. You're in in the home buying industry, you're in the real estate industry, a client walks in through your door and you're able to check off a few boxes, 5 minutes
Right
into the
away.
meeting.
Yes.
Bet you
Okay.
most of them do
Um,
realize that, but some also don't really.
Whether somebody's credit worthy, whether they have the job longevity, so on and so forth, right? And so you're still human.
Job.
You still live the life.
Yeah.
I grew up in the barrio in Avondale, and so I never forgotten that, and so I know what the life is like in,
Yeah.
in those situations. And it's like, well, and I never left my neighborhood. I'm still part of the neighborhood.
Those
And,
people still show up
you know,
to every event you
yeah.
have.
and,
Yeah.
and sometimes every now and then I'll have an up and comer say, well, you're no better than me, and you're no better than me just because you have just because you're the judge, so on and so forth. You're no better than me, and we're both the same. We're both men.
I mean,
we
that's
both put
not
on our
always
pants
the
same
case.
ways. And I said, you know what? You're right. You're right. You're right. Your heart beats just like mine.
Yep.
I have hope just like you. I love family just like you. I said, but here's the difference, and with no disrespect to anybody. It's just conversation. To put it in perspective, I said, and what you say is all good. I believe it. I said, but you know what? Here's the difference. When you and I go shopping at a fancy department store, I don't have to look at the price tag. You do. When we decide to leave this establishment and go home, I get in my vehicle, you get on your bike.
Yep.
Mic drop.
That's the difference.
If I had the mic right.
That's the difference. Everything else is the same. Everything else is the same, but that's the difference. So I'm not here to distinguish my success from yours or do anything like that. I said, but success is earned. Success is earned. What you have, what you earn in life. You've got the blessing of God. You've got the blessing of hard work and commitment. And I never apologize for my success because I know what it's taken. I mean, I grew up in a farm worker family. Traveling from state to state, picking onion, working the sugar beets in the fields in Idaho, the onion fields on the West Valley, along Cotton Lane and in Avondale, Goodyear, waking up at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday to jump in my dad's station wagon to go out and tie green onion, I know what it's like to sit in the backyard, with the tailgate of the truck down and piles and piles of green onions sitting there, and ready to be tied because that's your tarriada,
Yes.
I always chuckle when people talk about, well, we're going to have a tarriada, we're going to have tacos, we're going to have alcohol, we're going to have mariachis, and I always chuckle at that because my definition of a tarriada is a whole lot different.
Yes.
You go from tying onion at 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning, you go home, you go back at 3 or 4, that's your tarriada. That was my definition of tarriada growing up, but yeah, I mean, my grandparents, my aunts and uncles, we're all, farm laborers, and for years, even up until I was 15 years old, I mean, we had a Ford F-100 that I drove as a 15-year-old. Probably 16-year-old because I needed a driver's license. 16 years old, but it was the summer after my freshman year. And I remember it was me, my mom, my grandmother in the cab because it's just a single cab, and everybody else that was with us was in the bed of the truck, with the camper. And we all headed up north to Idaho because that's where we were going to spend the next 6-8 weeks working in the sugar beet,
Oh my gosh.
and then driving back home. It wasn't until, the mid 70s, late 70s, where my mom and dad finally settled down in a full-time job and we weren't, following the crop anymore. But I remember those days, and I know what it's like. I know what it's like to, not have, plumbing in your home, and you have to quite literally
Just cold water.
Yeah, you know what? I remember walking out of the house that we were
remember that.
in. Yeah, I remember walking out of the house that we were in and going to the outhouse,
Yeah, that's
taking
it.
care of business at an outhouse. Or, having a You know what? I always remember Folgers and MJB, coffee.
It was good.
Because we would have those cans under the bed that we had to go number one in the middle of the night.
Oh my gosh.
And so,
say everything.
because we can't go outside because it's too darn cold in the winter, so that was your go-to right there. And then in the morning, you just empty it out. I've been there. I mean, I can see a USDA silver can of peanut butter in front of me right now. Because that's where we would get our peanut butter from, is the USDA, United States Department of Agriculture. I remember
The big block of cheese.
yeah, with the block of
That big
cheese
block
and
of cheese.
the powdered milk, I know. I
was
got
real,
introduced
though.
to powdered milk with my friend Marcelino and Pedro Bravo that lived down the street from me, because they were also receiving those subsidies. And one day I'm visiting with them, and I said, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "Oh, we're making milk," and they're pouring it out of a package. It was powdered milk, that they would mix with water. And I'm like, okay, that's what. But I remember, having the little. Now you have, if you get food stamps, now they give you just the little EBT card that they call it. It's just like your little debit card. But way before that, in the 70s, they used to give you a little booklet.
Yeah.
If people remember that, they used to
Yeah.
give you a little
Fake
booklet.
Monopoly.
Yeah, Monopoly money, and you open it up and you pull out the $1 sheet or the $5 or the $10. Then you'd go buy your groceries, and then the cashier would give you this little 3x4 card, a little larger than a business card. They would stamp how much change you have left on that one bill. I mean, I remember doing that. I remember shopping with food stamps. I know
Yellow
what that's like,
Front, Montgomery Wards.
Yeah, exactly. And so that humbles you. That humbles you, and it allows you not to forget your history, not to forget where you came from, not to forget your roots, and go back and provide a hand up to
Yes.
those that follow you, and those young kids that are coming up. Now their situation may be not the same as yours, but the circumstances are a little different, but they still need that confidence. They still need somebody to believe in them. They need that Ben Miranda to come into their life.
We're
and
going to
say,
make
hey,
them better than us.
and encourage them to, hey, look beyond who you are right now, because you can become a larger personality than you realize. Your potential is limitless, and so you have to start thinking about where you want to be in life, and
We separated ourselves from what our parents were and their history. Even though we lived it, we separated ourselves just like you did. And that's what I was curious about, was how you came on this path. But you told it all.
You
And
don't have to be a statistic
yeah.
based on your
Well, you
history.
don't-
Were you the first one in your family to succeed or reach that level, like to
Well,
kind of
I'm-
break the generational kind of curse?
Yeah, I was the first one, and then I have some others. I grew up in a family of 9, so there's the total siblings. There's 9 of us, and I'm the middle child, so I'm number 5. And we have I have a couple of siblings that are professional businessmen, in the electrical industry. But I was the first one in my family to go to college, and you you don't remember those lessons, but that's what drives you, man. That's what motivates you, because I look back now and I'm thinking it just seems like a whole different world.
Yes.
Like, my gosh, that just seems like so long ago that you lived that lifestyle, and it's amazing just to chronicle, your history and where life has taken you, and the decisions that you made. But again, to me, it was 5th grade, 6th grade with Edmund. It was thinking about being a professional and looking at yourself in a different way, and loving yourself, and knowing that there was a world that's a whole lot larger than you. I mean, I remember it was in the late 70s. My cousin and I, Agustin, I had 2 pair of tickets to an ASU Sun Devil football game. I hadn't been to
ASU,
the ASU games.
ASU.
So I had been to ASU games in the past, but I had 2 tickets. And so I called my cousin. I said, hey, Augie, I said, this is what's happening. Go with me. And he says, okay. So he had never been to a college football game in his life, and he's a couple years older than me. So we walk into the stadium, and he says, Primo, all these people come to a football game. And he's looking around just amazed, you know, at the volume of people and just how many people were in the stands. And this is at the old Sun Devil Stadium. And I said, yeah, this is what happens. But to him, it was just a realization of something bigger and greater that's out there in the world, you know, beyond his provincial perspective in life. And so I think that's what has happened to me, you know, and I've always adhered to that philosophy ever since I started going to college at GCC. I said, you know what, you're getting good grades, you made the dean's list, you know you're good at what you're doing, you know you're going to get your AA degree here. Now what? It's like, so it goes back to charting your course, and it's like, okay, I want to run for the city council, I want to get my bachelor's degree, transfer to ASU, get involved in the community, and all of that happened in 1981. 1981. I started coaching with the Westside Recreation Program. I did that for close to 30 years. You know, helping kids. You know.
Yeah, Westside Youth.
Yeah, Westside Youth.
Same program that you're still
Yes,
giving
yeah.
back to
Westside
today.
That's the same nonprofit.
Yeah.
It's the same
Are
nonprofit.
they the same? The golf tournament and the Christmas, is that tied to the same?
Yes, it is. It's tied to the same.
We
it's
love
tied to the
helping
same
out with the
nonprofit.
golf.
It's a recreation program, and I see kids now in their 30s and 40s that played for me, that were my kids, you know, and in fact I just saw Stevie Vicetta on Monday evening at a funeral service, and his brother Mike Vicetta from Avondale, they both played for me when they were 9-10 years old, and I have some of the kids that I coached, you know, in 2012, you know, that are out there with participating in our Cinco de Mayo golf tournament, you know, and so it's been nice to see that.
Yes.
You know, because, you know, as we grow older and as we mature, and we go through this journey of life, then, you know, you see where your placement is your generational placement. Now, you know, when you were an 8th grader and you were saying hi to Mr. Baca because he was the janitor at the school, now you're in his shoes. Now you're the Mr. Baca. You know, now you're the Mr. Baca.
Oh my God!
You know,
I'm Mr.
God.
you
Baca.
know, you realize how you've come up in life and what you've done.
Oh
and
my
so
God.
the generational space that you now occupy, and you put all that in perspective, and
It's something to be proud of. And then all the people that you've touched along the way, because
You know.
you touch someone and their life changes. And you touch someone else.
Oh,
and their life
absolutely.
changes. I mean,
You know how many friends we have tied to you?
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, exactly what you're talking about. I mean, we see them, you know, on social media
Sure.
at all
Oh
your
my
events,
God.
or you know, we talk to them, they bring you up.
They'll be like, oh, yeah, he married me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
he married me
and
too.
you know what? That's the best part of my job is 501. You know, people get
Oh
married
my
and it's a
God.
happy time, and that's, I tell people, I said, you know what? You know, it's the only time during my job where no one's going to jail, no one's getting evicted, you know, no one's wages are being garnished, things like that, you know, and no, and building relationships, because
Yeah,
that's what
number one.
that's what one of the key successes in life is, or one of the keys to success in life is building relationships, because you know what, God tells us that, you know what, you can't worship alone. You have to worship with your community. You know, the Trinity tells us that there's that relationship between the
Strength within the community.
the
Yeah.
three entities. Okay, so
my
that means that
God.
you need to build relationships, because if you don't build relationships, then you're just going to be lonely. You're going to be isolated. You know, socially isolated, and that's not good for your health. That's not
Well,
good
for those
your,
who want to be lonely, they don't need to build relationships.
Yeah.
But for those who do, they definitely need to build a relationship. Otherwise, they're just going to be lonely, and they probably won't know how to take care of themselves.
And that's one of the things. Thank you, Cyrus. Thank you. That's very profound. And that's one of the things that has really driven, you know, any success that I've had, is building relationships. You know, and
Yeah, sometimes building relationships can be quite hard for some people.
it is, because they need to have that right personality and that right
They don't
perspective.
want to be like raw or real. Like they have a guard up sometimes.
Right.
If they just be who they are.
Yeah.
That's how we connect.
And you know what? I mean,
genuine care, you know?
Rosita, thank you for saying that,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of
Yeah,
different
we
angles how
appreciate
you can
that.
see this. But I've always just tried to be myself.
Yeah.
I've always just tried to be myself. And I tell people, I said, you know, you know, you go to an event and people give you a measured dose of themselves. They'll only peel back a couple layers of the onion of their personality, you know, and,
Yeah.
they'll set their boundaries.
I don't
you know.
remember those people.
But you know, and you know what? It's
Oh
like
my
I tell people,
God.
I don't want to wait until I'm retired to be able to just take off all the peels of that onion and show people my personality. I want to be myself right now.
We have a video of you dancing, so we
Okay.
know.
I said, I
Oh
want
my
to be
God!
myself
Don't bring
right
me
now.
back to that
you know?
6-7 meme that he
And-
did.
Real relationships can come like it'll feel like
Don't bring me back to that
You've known each
6-7
other
thing that he
forever.
did.
Yeah,
just by being real from the beginning.
exactly.
You don't have to, so that's where the relationship.
I think it builds trust. I think it builds respect. I think you know, people know what you're walking into. You know, and
Building is one of the most important things that you should definitely do in life, like building relationship, building care, building love, and also building other kinds of cares for
Yeah.
other types of people.
exactly.
Cyrus.
There you go. And it's just like, you know, it's just like Lionel Richie in his song. You know, he says, "People want me to be somebody that I'm not." You know, and I can't fake it. You know, just be real.
That's why people don't ask me questions
Don't-
because they don't
Don't
want
ever
to know
fake
the
stuff.
truth.
Always tell the truth. Don't ever fake stuff.
Yeah.
Always tell the truth.
You know, I'll tell you a quick story. You know, exactly right. I helped Brian Kilgore a few years ago. He's running for the Avondale City Council right now, and he served previously 8 years on the City Council. But I helped him collect signatures when he was first running, and I invited him into my old barrio by Mountain View Park on South Second Street in Avondale.
Oh yeah, I think I remember
And
that.
I said, Brian, I said, I want to introduce you to people. And so I took him to a handful of homes, introduced him to people. And he goes, how do you know all these people? I said, well, Brian, I grew up in the neighborhood. I said, I got to know my neighbors. I got to know my constituents. I said, so we got into the vehicle and we drove around the neighborhood. And I said, okay, so Brian, at that house right there, that's the Cabrera family. At this house right here, that's the Elizondo family.
that.
At this residence, that's the Garcia family. Over here in that corner, that's the Salas family.
That was really kind of you to do that.
I said, so when you get back into this neighborhood, familiarize with these people. These are good people. Build a relationship with them. You know, build a relationship with them because it builds trust and it builds equity and builds loyalty, you know, and respect. And so when I run for office, you know, it's a repeat of what I've been doing for 40 plus years.
You remember all
and
their
so
names.
I'm not a stranger to a lot of people when I come to their doorstep and knock on their door asking for asking for assistance, you know, or it may happen in a new neighborhood, you know,
Well, I
maybe
don't
one that
know.
I'm not familiar with.
They just
but,
upgraded.
you know, and, hey, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. You know, but I'm blessed to have been a product of my community, a product of my neighborhood. You know, an example of what can happen in a community where nobody expects anything. You know, but you go back to your communities and you plant the seed of hope. You plant the seed of faith, of expectation. You know, of realizing that you are somebody and that you are enough. And there are things that you can do in life. You plant that seed any way you can, and you watch it grow.
Hey, everyone
watch it
watching this,
grow.
remember,
Yeah.
community is always one of the most important things in life. Remember that. To everyone watching this.
I was just talking to a kid at the barber shop the other day, and he wanted to know about credit, you know, in our business, the home buying process. So I told him, you know, basically all that, but I also told him exactly what you're telling us was you have to give back to the community, and there's no way of getting out of it. And
Yeah,
if
you always
want
wanna
to
give back to
grow
the
and you want to
community.
be somebody, or you want to do something, or you want to feel good about yourself, you have to give back in some way. And I don't think that he understood it. He was only like 18. I mean, he gave a great haircut, but
Yeah.
Wow.
yeah, he took it in though.
But it's a seed you planted.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
seed, and we all have to
Seed.
do that. And you're right.
Relate to those types of people like that, a young person that really does, because you were saying earlier that you have to love yourself.
Yeah.
And starting from,
Well,
you
for
to
those
that
specific
aware
kind of
when you're
people, in
only
my opinion,
fifth grade, to me that's huge. You had your own will. Not everybody is that aware, especially the kids these days. They're so like pulled in all different directions
Right.
with social media, following different trends instead of really knowing who they are. does that go back to like how he's saying, if you give back to the community, maybe you'll find yourself, or how do you
You
recommend
grow.
like a young person starting to either find themselves or give back to the
Yeah.
community, or does that tie in together?
No, it ties in together because I phrase it in personal growth.
Same here.
So you need to grow as an individual.
Mm-hmm.
You need to develop as an individual. And you're not going to be able to do that. That growth is not going to realize itself unless you allow yourself to grow by engaging with other people. Allow yourself to be part of experiences, life experiences, enrichment activities. Allow yourself to be part of that, because if you don't allow yourself to be part of that,
Yeah.
then you may stunt your growth, your personal growth, your professional growth. But on the other hand, if you do take advantage of it, you may learn things about yourself that you didn't know, that you didn't realize existed in you. You look at the lives of other people. Do you see something in that person that you don't see in yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And don't be ashamed of that. That's okay.
That's okay.
Because we're not perfect.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. Most
And,
people are like that too.
you know, and we're not the model of be like him or be like her, because
I'm
you know,
not perfect.
yeah, the human species
Yeah. Not
is too
everyone on
diverse.
this planet is perfect.
You know, but it's okay to look at somebody, you know, across the room and say, I like what I see in that person. I don't see that in myself, but I like what I see. And if I can survey a room, and if I can, you know, evaluate human behavior, how people treat themselves, how people treat others, how they behave in a certain space, in a certain environment, if I can pick up a couple of positives from that, and it blends into who I am, well, then I can incorporate it easily into my personality, and practice it, and allow it to become part of who I am. And you know, Ed Pastor was great at this. You know, former Congressman Ed Pastor. He would walk into a room, and he would see somebody that's getting a lot of attention. I'm witness to this. Okay, so I'm not making this up. He would see someone that's attracting a lot of attention, and Ed may not have known that person, but he would ask, "Hey, who is that? Who is that person? What's his or what's his name? What's her name? What do they do? Where are they from?"
Wow.
Okay, and
Yeah, even
then
though some
5-10 minutes later, Ed would walk up to that person. Hey, Juan, how are you doing? You know, I hear you're from Texas. You went to UT in Austin. You're a Longhorn. How are you? And you know, somebody approaches you in that manner. You're thinking, whoa, they're really interested in who I am and where I've been.
Don't
You
always
know?
get jealous of everyone.
But you have to allow yourself to do that. And you know, when I was at GCC, I would enroll in different classes just to experience it.
Yeah, you must do
You
the
know,
right thing.
just to know what it was like, and maybe I'm gonna learn something. I'd go on excursions with people just to learn. Maybe I don't fit entirely into this equation, but I'm gonna put myself in this room, and in this experience, because I hopefully I'm gonna come out of it with something positive that's going to help me, that's
Yeah.
going to shape my thinking, that's going to shape
Right.
my way of life, the way I see myself. And so when you see a young person, that's what you have to encourage them to do. Say, hey, you need to grow.
Yes.
Grow by learning, grow by experiencing life, grow by having relationships, grow by doing things, going places, and, you know, go to college.
Yeah.
You just graduated from high school. Go to college. Give yourself an opportunity to grow and learn and become a member of
Go
the fraternity
somewhere.
of the learned. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe after your second or third year, you realize, you know what, this is not for me, or it is for me. I know what I want. I know where my passion is taking me, and
Yeah,
it's
we
going
must
to lead
always
you
trust our
somewhere.
passion.
It's going to lead you somewhere.
Yeah.
And so for these young people, it's just like, hey, look, it's not just about you. Okay, life is not just about you.
Right.
Okay, you need to understand that. Yes, you're important. People love you, but you know what? Life is not about you.
Yeah, you must always trust
is
other
about
people
how
with
you
their lives.
live, you know, how you treat yourself, how you treat others, what you do for your community, what you do for your family. That's the most important aspect of life. It's not you, because if it's just about you, then you're going to isolate yourself. You're going to be accused of being selfish. You know, not a giving heart, so on and so forth. We'll keep throwing all the adjectives out there. If you just think about yourself, you have to realize that you build yourself up You know, and everything that you do, you know, you have to have an end game for yourself.
Right.
Okay, there has
Yeah.
to be a goal, right?
Always.
And you have to work towards that. You know, and a good friend of mine, Kedrick Allison, he was a former basketball player at ASU, but we were at GCC together. He transferred to ASU, and then he played basketball there. He graduated from St. Mary's down the street. He worked for he retired from the city of Phoenix as economic development department. But he and I had a conversation one day, and he was on this business venture, and he says, Pep, he says, I have these guys calling me, good friends of mine, business partners, and they're telling me that there's this opportunity that has presented itself, and they want me to buy into it, but it's not in, it doesn't align with my vision. Doesn't align with where I see myself going in this business that I have. So I have to say no. You know, it's not that what they're selling me is not good. It has value, but it's not pushing me in the direction that I want to go. You know, and so sometimes you have to say no to those external influences. And when you expose yourself to experiences, then you put yourself in a position to be able to do that. So now you're conscious about it.
Yeah, you want to
Say,
make
hey,
sure.
look, I'm at ASU. I want to graduate with my engineering degree. I want to graduate with my doctorate, whatever the case may be. But I have this opportunity to take a part-time job,
Yeah,
selling
absolutely.
mobile phones. Like, well, time out. That doesn't align with your purpose in life right now. It's going to be a distraction. So you
Yeah,
have to say no.
absolutely.
But if you experience life a little bit, then you're able to say, then you're able to recognize that distraction and say, you know what, no thank you, but no thank you. But if you encounter something that brings value to what you're doing, then by all means embrace it, and enjoy it, and give it the value
Yeah.
that it has. And you know what, if you see someone in life, and this is what this all goes hand in hand with talking to these young people, 18-year-olds. I said, if you see someone who is succeeding and has achieved some level of success in what they're doing, you know what?
Yeah. Pat 'em on the back.
You applaud them.
Yes.
You applaud them, and you say congratulations, and you take a step back and say, how did he or she do it? What did they do?
Yeah, always
Because
support those.
I may need to adopt some of their own practices
Reassess myself.
exactly to get where I'm going.
Tell us more about voting for you, how we can vote for you, your election. Give us a little wrap up about that.
Okay.
So that way everybody knows.
Okay.
Kinda.
Yeah, we have the election coming up July 21st, 2026. That's election day. But voting by mail and early voting is very popular in the state of
become
Arizona.
popular, yes.
It's about 85% of registered voters that will cast a vote early, whether they go to one of these early voting sites or whether they vote by mail. That starts on the 24th of June.
Oh, June.
So Maricopa County Elections Department next Friday.
Next Friday.
Maricopa County Elections Department will mail out the ballots. So they should be reaching your mailbox by the 27th, the 28th of June. So if you vote by mail, that's when the ballot you
This is
you
the
should expect
primary,
to
right?
This is the primary. So that's when you should expect to receive your ballot in the mail. Register to vote. You have until the 22nd, I believe it is, of June to register to vote in the July 21 primary. Okay, so if you're not registered to vote, you have until the 22nd of June. Yeah, that's next week. That's next
Get out
Wednesday.
there and
You
vote
all better vote for him.
The Honorable Judge Joe Pep Guzman.
And then you know what? And I'm 11-0 right now. Okay, and my expectation is that I remain undefeated.
And you will.
Okay,
And
You all better
um,
vote for him.
And so June 22nd, I believe, is the deadline to register to vote. June 24th, early ballots go out in the mail. July 21 is election day, and that's the primary. So you're going to get either the Republican ballot, you're going to get the Democrat ballot, in the mail, or if you go vote in person.
Yeah.
And we expect a good turnout. I have an opponent this year. I haven't had an opponent, quite frankly, in the last 3 election cycles. And
You really don't have an opponent.
Yeah, he does. Yes, he does.
and I tell you what,
Y'all better vote
we're
for
out
him.
there working. We're out there working, meeting people, and the energy level is pretty high and consistent. For a long time now. And I tell people, you can use any catchphrase you want. I said, but we'll use catchphrases, but we mean it. If I use a catchphrase or something that's a cliche, I don't mean to beat a dead horse using it. I use it because I mean it.
We believe
And it's
in
the
you,
truth, and I
Judge
believe
Pep.
it.
We believe
because,
in you.
So it's like, you know what? I'm
You all
in it
better
to win
vote
it,
for him.
and I'm in it to win it, and that's the bottom line. And I told some folks back in April, said, hey, you know what? If you're the champ, then you work like the champ, okay? And you live life
Absolutely.
like the champ. If somebody wants to challenge the champ, and they think they're the number one contender, well, then they can get in the ring with you. But if they want to be champ, then they got to beat the champ.
Exactly.
I
Okay.
just want
Are you
to
ready for that?
party afterwards with the champ, and that's Judge Joe Pep Guzman.
Go vote.
Yup.
Go vote.
Judge Joe Pep Guzman and Cyrus.
Thank you. Thank
No
you
problem.
for the invitation. It's been great going down this.
We
going
really
down this,
appreciate the invite,
journey
guys.
Of ours. This
We have quite a journey coming
going
up
down
with you.
memory lane and being nostalgic a little bit, but hopefully your audience
Everyone watching
gains
this,
a little
y'all
bit,
better
a
vote
little
for
bit of
him.
insight on what we do,
Yes.
and who I am, and what my legacy is, and what my history is, and I share it with you so that we can set up the next generation for an abundance of success.
Let's do it
You know?
together.
It's an honor to be
Absolutely,
here with you, Judge.
absolutely.
I feel like we just barely tipped the iceberg of all of your
I
wisdom.
wish we had more time.
Yeah, I wish we
Yeah.
have to come back and do another episode.
Absolutely. Anytime. Hey,
Because you
I'm
have
an
so much
email
to
away.
share.
I'm a phone call away.
Yes, that's so
You
true.
know?
So we're
Well,
going to
well,
take you up on that.
Thank
We're
you.
definitely going to come back another time.
Yes, thank you, Cyrus. You've been such a pleasure and made everything so fun and relaxed. And I
No
could
problem.
I could tell a lot of seeds have been planted on you. So
Well,
you're going to be.
Thank you again.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And
We really
love you
appreciate the
guys.
invitation, guys. We really appreciate coming down to,
Love's a big
to
word,
do this,
and
and
it's
we-
hard to say.
and we really enjoy coming to support you guys and supporting everything about here. And we'll make sure to come here another time to support you guys even more.
Thank you.
All
Thank
righty.
you.
We'll take it. Thank you, guys.
Have a good one.
All right.
The Loopy Channel's out.